Hello folks, does it work now? Fixed, it works. You hear me and there is not an issue. Okay, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, so we actually start half an hour later, so to speak. I don't know why this happened, I have no idea, I didn't change really anything, I just started my system again and I restarted my router, and I hope it stays, because last time you were also able to hear me, you know, let's just hope it stays this way and it's okay till the end of this session. So we can jump back into Jhon's project and take a look at what I was just showing you. So again, there are tons of good examples of natural framing on the exteriors of this project, like in this one. Here you see how he has this dark green foreground, which lets the viewer concentrate more on the area he wants the viewer's attention to be, which is the building, obviously. And this one is the better example, even like probably the best one. I really enjoy this because of the way this natural framing has been pulled off here. So you see again, it works, it is pretty good. Again, the framing and this natural framing Jhon uses here lets us concentrate on the building, which should be the main eye catcher of a project like this. But yeah, so all of this is very positive. Again, the evening mood, it's not only that you made such a great project, but you also managed to depict it in a wonderful way, also through different times of the day, which I think is just a proof that it is really quality work. What I don't like about it, and this is not much, is on this shot here. Let me just go back here. I find these street trees to be quite small and for their crowns to be quite low. So you see the person here, you cannot almost walk underneath them, which renders all of this walkway area unusable. And obviously isn't very convenient, so I would say make them a bit larger or higher, so that people can actually walk underneath the crowns of those trees. The last thing that I don't like, and this is the thing that I don't like the most, and you will all see it after going through all of those very high quality images, we'll end up on this one, and this one truly sucks. I'm sorry for being so honest, but this is just the way it is. It just doesn't visually belong to the other ones. It's kind of bleached out, it's pretty contrastless, the colors look strange and desaturated, the contrast isn't there anymore. My personal guess is that this is a photo montage, that you had this, let's say, bird view image, and then you decided to implement your project into it and tried to adapt as much to its lighting and color scheme and everything, but the final result simply isn't that great, because again, all of the things, it's bleach out, it's contrastless, it's the angle is weird, it doesn't even show the whole new part of this project properly. So if I were you, I would just skip this image when you share the project, because it doesn't hold up to the quality that you've set with the previous images. But in conclusion, apart from this last one image, this is just the black sheep of the images, we just ignore it. Apart from it, it is literally one of the best projects that I have reviewed in this show so far, and I think this is saying something, because again, we have had projects by really seasoned artists like Ulfat or Roy. So yeah, this is really quality stuff. Especially if it is a commercial one, if I was your client, I would be very happy with the final outcome. And personally, as an artist, I would be happy to have this project in my portfolio. So, great job, Jhon. Keep it up this way. I hope you still hear me, folks, without any issues. I see Abdi joined us. Thank you, man, for helping me. I just quickly called Abdi to make sure that the issue is not on the side of my microphone or something, so I just quickly called him on Skype, and he reassured me that everything with my mic is okay, so I hope it stays this way and we don't have any issues anymore. Again, sorry for this inconvenience. And we can move to Lucas' work. Lucas says, I hope you like it. Houses in the high jungle countryside in Peru. Professional project done in 3ds Max, V-Ray, Quixel, Forest Pack and Photoshop. All cooked in one AMD Ryzen Threadripper 2990VX. RTN with a 64 gigabytes of RAM and an NVIDIA RTX 3080. Personally, I rock the same Threadripper CPU as Luca, and it is a really quality piece of hardware with 32 cores and 32 digital ones, so 64 cores, and it really rocks, and it's really quick and solid. But so yeah, Luca, very nice description. We know the software, we know this is a commercial project, we even know your PC configuration, and honestly, folks, I sometimes see people sharing tons of links to their personal sites and so on. Instead, because this is an educational community, gladly share something like your software, your PC configuration or something, because sometimes some of the issues that are visible in the images are actually because of, let's say, hardware which is just too or not strong enough, let's say, to pull off better images. So sometimes this is the issue, and this is also a topic we can be talking about. In the case of Luca, however, his hardware is very strong, so this won't be an issue here. When it comes to the images, they are nicely varied. Well, the first two not so much, but the others, nice, cool angles. It's always cool to see an interior shot among the first preview shots here when it comes to an exterior project like this. Also, I see nice visual consistency. This is always to applaud, because this is how it should be. So let's take a closer look at this. I would say, just looking at the images, I have never been to South America, but I would say this looks Peruvian and feels Peruvian to me. Both the setting, the landscape, and the type of architecture. What I also really dig here is the natural feel and look of the garden belonging to this project, because it doesn't look and feel overly designed. It's more like the landscape architect, or just the inhabitants of those houses decided to make the most out of the terrain that they were given or that they had at their disposal. So it kind of feels natural. If you take a look at the first shot, it looks a bit like a hiking path, which personally is something that I enjoy. On the flip side, however, I would say that this maybe doesn't look that attractive, because a hiking path is just, you know, a piece of nature that is meant for people to walk on. But here you have, you know, a whole new real estate project, and the garden looks a bit more like it is the way it was by nature, with just a few pathways in between, which doesn't make it look very, I don't know, designed, to be honest. So it's a matter of perspective, it's a matter of personal taste. Personally, I can live with something like this. Our garden here also has, it has similarities to our garden. We also have pathways like this. I personally enjoy it, but honestly, if I look at this project for the first time, it looks a bit like those, only the buildings are new and the landscape is just being left the way it was by nature. Also, when it comes to the buildings themselves, the interiors, you see this here very well. The interiors are completely empty. There are some stairs there, but nothing that suggests that somebody lives there already, which makes the buildings feel lifeless, not really lived in. So gladly in situations like this, just take a few, you know, assets from the Cosmos library. You use V-Ray. You have Cosmos coming with it. Just take a few assets, a few lamps, a bit of wall art, some potted plants, put them on the inside, maybe find some furniture for the terraces, and then it will look lived in, and this way more inviting and also more authentic generally. When it comes to the modeling, I would say it's a bit of a mixed bag, because on the positive side, which is a bit surprising in this case, to be honest, you have the landscape modeling, which is very, very decent. I really like it. It's a really good job with complex landscape and terrain to work with. It feels right, it makes sense. So you see the pathways make sense, the stairs, the landscape terraces, everything seems to make sense when it comes to the landscaping, and I think you did a very good job with it. It's really authentic. On the flip side, what's not so good is the modeling on the houses themselves, because you know, it is true, the houses are kind of complex. It's not the regular, you know, boxy house with a few windows in it. It has like a million of windows. It has this pitched roofs. It's a complex form to work with, and you have actually decently built it, and you have also added detail to it. Like there are all the windows, then there is the gutter, then there are the railings and so on. But all of this kind of needs more detail to it, and just more love put into making it. And also you must clearly put those things together in a precise way, because let's take a look at this one. You see we have a column here clipping through the wall. We have you know, those sliding doors that don't make a connection with the floor. It just isn't a clean job. Material wise, it's a bit similar to the modeling. I think that the materialization of your landscape is pretty good. I can imagine some parametric solutions being used here at the same time, so which is really pretty nice. But when it comes to the materials of the buildings, I don't think that this is the case. They look kind of basic and not really realistic, and in situations like this I tend to recommend to just go to the materials one by one and try setting them up until you reach a level in which they really look realistic and authentic. And the best way to do this is just by having some overcast HDRI as your surrounding, or maybe just plain white light, and then going to the materials one by one, gladly overriding over the rest, and just trying to set them up in a way that they really look and act believable, and then do it with each and every material, and you will absolutely profit from this, I'm sure. Lighting wise, the lighting is nice. It's pleasant to look at. It's warm and inviting. It has a good mood to it. Maybe not the most realistic one, but it does the job. Background wise, I gotta compliment this, because the background really gives a lot of emotion to this project. So we see here what we see from the inside, which is, by the way, one really great architectural shot, because we see the inside of the house, we see this buffer zone, which is the terrace, which is, let's say, this transition between inside and outside, and then we see the distant background, which in this case are those really picturesque mountains with a waterfall, which I think is really, really good, right? So again, you have added this background in a very nice way. I don't know how, maybe you actually exported it from Google Earth. This would be very smart of you. Maybe you just added it as an image in a post-production. Both things work, but I would say that the background adds a lot of authenticity and also a lot of emotion to the images. Because if I look at this one, this is probably my favorite shot. I would say it reminds me a bit of like a National Geographic or some travel documentary, and this is awesome because, you know, we're in Peru, we're in a special location, so it's awesome to see that the surroundings are also depicted the same way. And when it comes to the framing, I would go through it maybe with you one by one, starting with the first shot, which is generally nice, informative. I would say not ideal when it comes to the composition, because the first house is very prominent and it's covering a bit too much of the second house. So judging by my feel, I would just pan the camera a bit to the left until I see the second house as a whole, because it is possible the way these two are configured. It's visible on the second shot. Just on the second shot you cut it off too early, so the first house isn't visible. When it comes to the third shot, it's a nice overview of the overall situation. It's always nice to have a bird view like this. I like it. I think the cropping is off again, though, because the upper house isn't visible, so maybe a portrait mode would have been the better choice here, so that you can include it as well instead of showing lots of just, you know, empty surroundings. The next shot is this shot of this hut or whatever this is. Nice one in general. Again, I think a portrait framing would be the better choice in this case, and maybe some depth of field as well. This one we already talked about. It is really a good architectural shot, but it feels empty because there is nothing on the inside, no furniture on the terrace. So yeah, it just feels lifeless. So again, the recommendation here, just put in some nice furniture on the inside, on the terrace, and then you have a really good shot at your hands. This one is pretty good because it is very informative. It shows the house, but it is again empty on the inside and on the terrace. And my favorite shot, which is, it has something really adventurous to it, and I really enjoy it. And it also shows where these people will be living with what an amazing view. Just here, I don't know if you edited in the post-production, but the background looks kind of bluish, while your foreground is very greenish, so the transition between them doesn't work this well, and try to match them better when you're putting them together. And in conclusion, in my opinion, you actually did a great job with the most difficult part about this project, which is the landscaping and representing it in an authentic and natural way. So respect for that. But now you need to pay more attention to the realistic depiction of your buildings, because I think the whole project is about them. Also, so yeah, try to pay more attention to the detail of your modeling. Try to update your materials to look and act better. Add interior and exterior furnishing for the project to feel lively and lived in. And for a more realistic general outcome, so more realistic single shots in this session, I suggest experimenting a bit with different lighting scenarios and also with different tone mappings to achieve a more realistic final result. But with this being said, this is still one pretty cool and interesting project, in my opinion. And if you folks still hear me, I see that you're there, I hope you still hear me, we'll move on to something really very interesting and philosophic, which is this post by Bilal, who says, Have you ever thought of a carpet as more than just a functional piece of decor? And honestly, I gotta say no. The world of 3D visualization is transforming the way we perceive this everyday element. This stunning carpet isn't just a floor covering, it's a mesmerizing artwork brought to life. Every strand is a stroke of creativity and every shade is a hue of emotion. The intricate patterns and textures are designed to engage your senses and elevate the ambience of any space. So this is something you have to probably read a few times to understand. It's a bit pushed very high, it's a bit corny maybe, but why not? Later, Bilal says that this is an ode to carpets, so it kind of belongs to an ode, right? He continues, the magic lies in the details, the way the light and shadows dance on the surface, the way it can transport you to another dimension right in the heart of your home. Whether it is the softness underfoot or the visual delight it brings, this 3D carpet is an experience like no other. This post is an ode to the fusion of functionality and artistry, where interior design meets imagination. Embrace the world of 3D visualization and add a touch of magic to your space. Put your thoughts in the comments. So, I gotta admit that carpets have never been that important to me or to my personal work. So this post actually really made me think on this topic and think about carpets as more than just a feeling for my interior design. So I'm very thankful to Bilal for this, because yeah, it may be very philosophical, it may be a bit corny, but it actually provides nice food for thought. So really interesting description and text to your work, dear Bilal. When it comes to the image itself, I think it looks really nice, really good, has a pleasant color palette and contrast to it, so it's a pleasure to look at. Let's take a closer look and talk a bit about the design. Now, it's obviously one exciting architectural situation. We have this courtyard we get to have a glimpse into. I think this immediately creates a very special atmosphere and a scene that is something new and unique. Also, the randomness of these architectural elements makes it look less staged or less artificial, in terms of less like a visualization and more like a deliberate choice as a part of a furniture photo shoot, let's say. When it comes to the mix of design elements that you see here, I am not quite sure, to be honest, because on the one hand we have this arched opening here, which to me belongs more to the classic Oriental architecture. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, people. If you know more about such design elements, gladly share in the comments. But to me, this looks like this Oriental arches, something like this, just not pointy, but apart from that, pretty similar. At the same time, we have windows that I would, if I think back to my architectural history lessons while studying architecture, I would call these windows to be something of the Baroque style. So yeah, if you Google Baroque windows, you see similar patterns like the columns on the side, the rounding up here, and if you go back, you see they're very similar. So I would say that you have mixed here elements that don't go together that well, because yes, there is something like eclectic design, where you just, let's say you have a cathedral which isn't used as a cathedral anymore, it's abandoned, and you decide to turn it into a discotheque or into a bar or into a private home, and then you put very modern furniture into it. Then you have these Gothic windows with the modern furniture, and this is eclectic. What we have here, however, are Baroque windows with this like Oriental opening in the wall, and these are things that simply don't go together, because in the time they were built, they wouldn't be put together like this. there is this window in the hallway we're standing in. This is just a window, you see it once in the back, and then you have put it here in the front, more like a mirror or something. It kind of looks good, the reflections are nice, but it serves no purpose there, and it's kind of strange to be there, so maybe just put some mirror there instead. Also, the most crucial point, because you have written this ode on carpets, is the placement of the carpet. Now, I don't know what you guys think or if you agree with me on this, but the way the carpet is currently placed, I don't get the feeling that the scene is supposed to revolve around it. Currently, to me, it resembles, because, you know, we are in this hallway and this is the courtyard, which is brightly lit, so this is where we actually want to go to. So this is more or less the entrance to this area, and then we have the carpet laying in front of this entrance. And you know how carpets that are laying in front of an entrance are called? They're called doormats. And doormats aren't that prestigious and aren't that great as the carpet you're talking about in your description. So, in my opinion, the carpet should be in this area here, while something secondary or not so important to a project like this should be here. Like the fountain can be on the inside and the carpet can be on the outside. So I tried to experiment a bit on this with AI, and I'll show you the result. It's not really great, but it at least depicts what I mean by switching the places of the fountain and the carpet and placing the carpet on the outside. Because let's analyze the scene in terms of framing and lighting. You have, you know, the brightest areas being the areas where people look to in order, you know, the viewer looks at, following, you know, the general photographic rules. So obviously this is this area. Let's analyze it like this. So we have this area here. I will just uglily draw it. This is the area that we concentrate on. And it's not only the light, it is also the darkness in which we are placed, and we are looking outside to this brightness, to this properly lit up situation. So this is where the action must be taking place. Additionally, through your opening here, you have set up a framing for the viewer to look through or to look at. And this is why I think that your carpet actually belongs here on the outside rather than here on the inside in the darkness of the hallway where it resembles a doormat. So yeah, again, this may not be the best way to show this, but here, let's take a look at this reference together. You see this project here has a lot of elements to it, lots of architectural elements, this beam, and like it's a two-story space with lots of detail. There is an outdoor to it, but what we concentrate on is the carpet, clearly. So maybe try to achieve a similar result in your shot. Maybe a red carpet would also be a good idea in this case, because if you take a look at here, you will see how the floor is like whitish or very bright, and then you have this very red carpet on it, so which makes for a very strong visual contrast. So yeah, let's get back to the original. I would do the scene differently when it comes to design. Other than that, the other topics, modeling looks very solid. Maybe the edges are a bit too sharp currently. I don't know how you did this form here, probably with some boolean. So if chamfering isn't a good option, maybe go for rounded edges, a rounded edges solution, and then you'll see if it works better. Just try to get some more rounded look to them, and they will look better. Material wise, the materials go together well, they look cool. The only thing that I see here on the floor is that there is like a transition between the stone material floor on the hallway and the outside area, and in my opinion this should be one continuous surface, so just make it as one so that there is not a jump in the texture as it is here. But in conclusion, this is one really nice topic, concentrating an image session around, or just an image around a single topic like a carpet or a single design element or furniture element. Also, I think that the general idea of this scene is a great base for a photo session, but maybe you need clearer goals and a clearer focus so that the carpet really sticks out as the main object and the main part of your scene, the eye catcher. And as to you folks in the comments, how do you think or feel about carpets in general? Are they important to maybe your country of origin, respectively the country you currently reside in? Are they important to you personally, or to the architectural styles you like? Do you have a preferred carpet style? Because again, if I think about carpets, to me they are just something you put your furniture on. To my personal taste, if a carpet could just be like more subtle and it's like a secondary element. It should be easy to clean and comfortable, so that you can put your feet on while you're sitting on the couch or something. But it is not an important design element to me. And thinking about Bilal's text here, I think that maybe I should do some reading on carpets, and in future projects actually try to be more specific and maybe try to get a bit more emotion or achieve a better design through something such as a carpet. Jonathan says there are big problems with clients. They always want to change the carpets. Why? Do you try some very colorful or wild carpets, or are your clients just not big fans of carpets? Why is that? And in the meantime, I will move over to another very interesting thing to talk about, this time very technically interesting. It's Alfonso's project. He says, "Hi, I share one of my latest projects testing photogrammetry point clouds with Agisoft Metashape plus Revit plus Max plus V-Ray." So yeah, before I jump into the images, Ulfat says carpets are very important in Morocco, like Kilim. Yeah, I know. I think in the Eastern cultures, carpets are way more important than they, at least currently, are in Western countries or European or American. I don't know. I mean, all the homes that I have lived in have had carpets in them, but still they are somehow not so important to me personally. I don't know why. Again, this post made me think, and I think that I will be doing some reading on carpets in future, to be honest. It's part of the heritage, says Ulfat. Yeah, probably. This must be it. And Jonathan says, yep, one client won a specific carpet and changed his mind plenty of time. Yeah. Okay, yeah, clients like this, then it's not only about the carpets, probably, it's also about the chairs and the tables and the sofas and the lamps and everything. But yeah, let's take a closer look at this project by Alfonso. Generally, Alfonso's presentation is providing all the essential info. It's very interesting to know which software he has used for his photogrammetry testing. But if I look at the images, as a small preview, I must admit that at first glance they look a bit more like Google Earth shots rather than, decent renderings, which I don't think is a very good thing. But let's take a closer look. Before we begin, I see Irina saying, hey, I live in Latvia, here is cold climate, so mostly people prefer to have carpets in their homes. Yeah, makes absolute sense, right? It's also very cozy, and carpets make everything pretty comfortable, if you ask me. It's maybe just their design that we don't think so much about. So, yeah, maybe just some food for thought for the future. Now, let's take a look at Alfonso's images one by one. We have these street views of the building. The whole thing revolves around, I would say. And on these bird views, you can actually see the scanned model being the surrounding to this house. Here is the point cloud from the scan. And here is the drone that did all the scanning and some clay models to see how the scan actually looks like. And we're back at the first shot. Now, let's start with the 3D modeling. I won't talk about design in this case because this is not a major point here. But when we talk about 3D modeling and photogrammetry, I think that photogrammetry is pretty cool. So first of all, it is interesting and exciting way of creating, let's say, your surroundings in 3D. And it's not only because you don't build them in a casual way, just like following photos or Google Earth references and so on, but actually, using this scanned model. It's also pretty cool because you actually get to leave your workplace and go somewhere else where your project will be situated, see the surroundings live, see how they are in real time, and then do the scanning with the drone. I think all of this is pretty exciting, pretty adventurous, makes you leave your chair, your monitor, and just go out there in the world. I think this is pretty cool. Also, it is a smart solution, obviously, because it makes you save time instead of manually trying to rebuild your surroundings, again, following, like the usual way, following photos by the client or like 3D data from Google Earth. You can actually have this model scanned in a day and then put it in your model, and you have all the surroundings just done with a days of work. Because I personally remember working for a week or two on projects with lots of surroundings to rebuild, and this feels like a wasted time in comparison. And of course, last but not least, it is more accurate, it is more up to date. Yesterday you went there, you scanned everything, and today you put it in your model, so when you put the new house in this surrounding, you know that this surrounding is really up to date, because satellite images, let's say from Google Earth, are sometimes really old, and so they are not accurate anymore. When it comes to the final result, however, I wouldn't say this is very convincing though, because let's say seen from the distance, it looks kind of fine. It's kind of okay, even though you see areas like the pool here or this building, they just look very rough. But seen from up close, it is really poor quality of the surrounding model. Just take a look at this one. Oh no, sorry, wrong direction. Let's zoom in here on the curves. They just look bad, like LOD level 100, so like the lowest level. Everything is very rough, at the same time kind of awkwardly smoothed. It just doesn't look good. Now let's compare to what actually Agisoft, I don't know how to pronounce this, promises with their videos. Here I will move to like 220, and this is a scan done with their scanning solution. And if you take a look at this, there is a ton of detail to this sculpture. You see, everything is very, very clear. But your model looks more like this. So I think, or my guess is that you did this aerial scan and then you tried to use it for up close shots, and obviously there won't be enough detail for that, both when it comes to the geometry of the mesh but also when it comes to the textures, because just take a look at the textures. From far away they look pretty decent, to be honest, the street for example, but if you take a closer look, just take a look at this. This is obviously very low poly, very low quality. It just looks bad. It just looks as if there are ways to take a certain part of a Google Earth model, cut it out and place it in your scene, and it more or less looks the same. So currently, the way you have done it doesn't really differentiate a lot from just extracting a part of Google Earth. So I still don't see how you profit from this, because especially these close-up shots of this house really don't look good. Just take a look at this. Take a look at the curves. Take a look at the streets. Take a look at this wall down here. It is bad. So I think what you probably need to do in cases like this is that you can make your aerial scan, but maybe you should then make a different scan around the area, like a closer scan of the area that you will be placing your building on, maybe an even closer one on the curves and on this corner, just so that you have enough quality to then use this photogrammetry scan as a surrounding of your model. And when it comes to your building itself, without the surroundings, I would also say it doesn't look like you've spent a ton of time building it. It looks like a Revit model, a basic one that you have just exported, and this isn't really that nice. It lacks detail. Just look at the door, for example. I mean, the front door doesn't even have a handle or something. So everything looks pretty rough and basic, and you have to remember that it doesn't matter if you use photogrammetry or whatnot around it. Your main building is still the main focus of your project. So you still need to do quality modeling and work on it. Same with the materials. We talked about the materials of the scan model, but if we take a look at the building, the materials don't look very good. Like you have a basic material to the facade, and then this wood, which is pretty dark, and there is visible texture, mapping repetition to it. You even forgot to actually, texture a part of the model. So yeah, I don't see much of, love to your put into the modeling and texturing of the building. The whole scene revolves around, and this is not really such a good thing. And when it comes to the lighting, this is also pretty suboptimal, because the main building, the thing that we should be looking at is actually in the shadows, while the street, which is absolutely secondary and insignificant, is brightly lit. Now, the photographic and compositional rules, we look at the bright areas first. These are usually the most important ones, and what I see here is like curves and street, and what I don't see is the building. So it is exactly the opposite of what it should be, right? And generally, this is just something to always think about. Remember, if you go to take photos because you want to do a photo montage, let's say later, or if you want to go and do a photogrammetry scan with a drone, like in your case, you always gotta consider the scene's lighting as you later have to go with it. So, in this case, let's say this is afternoon, you have to do some thinking before you do the scanning or the photos that you later use to put your building inside. You have to do some thinking and see when the building will be properly lit. Now obviously, if this is, let's say, an afternoon scene, the building isn't properly lit in the afternoon, so you don't do a scan then, because once you do a scan, you have to adapt the lighting of your main object, like the house and of the whole scene, to be the same as the lighting was in this model. So if you have all the shadows coming to the left, we'll have sun from the right, and our building will be in the shadows, which is not good. So obviously, if you have to do some scanning, then do it in the morning to get some light onto the building's facade. Or alternatively, use an overcast day, go there on an overcast day, so that there is not such a strong sun and shadows, so that you are later more flexible when it comes to the lighting. And in this case, you see, you already had sun on the street, and because you have additional new sun in order to illuminate your building in your 3D model, you have two layers of sun on the street, which results in all the materials here looking bleached out. So, in conclusion, I would say this is a nice approach to a project like this. So photogrammetry is really a legit workaround, and certainly needs exploring. In my opinion, it has great future, especially with better drones, better photogrammetry scan solutions, with the AI that may maybe clear out some stuff that we don't want in our scan model, let's say parked cars and so on. I see a bright future in front of photogrammetry, but first of all, it has to be done precisely, and second, you still need to make the best out of the classic part of your job, which means you still need a good model on your building, you still need decent texturing and mapping, and you have to still follow the photographic rules of lighting and composition when creating the shots. So yeah, and to you folks, I want to ask you, have you tried photogrammetry tools, or do you maybe even use them on a regular basis? Gladly share your experience with that. I'm really curious about it. Personally, I haven't. I manually rebuild my surroundings or do photos and then I just photo montage my rendering into them. Tank asks, I have a question, how to create a house using Google Maps so realistic? Well, no, it's not really realistic, Dang. I mean, again, this is a photogrammetry model and he then placed, so yeah, it is a 3D model in the end, which is a textured one. What he got from his Agisoft Metashape software, you see it here, you can just visit agisoft.com and then you can see what the whole thing is about, and then he just placed his 3D model into it. But the way the final outcome is, it is not really, I cannot agree with you that it is realistic, to be honest. Jonathan says, what type of AI tool are you using? Do you mean the rest or me? Because apart from generative fill in Photoshop and ChatGPT for lots of questions, I don't use lots of others AI tools. And Sebastian says Gaussian splatting is nice for that, for what we just talked about. So yeah, let's gladly check this out. And in the meantime, I will move over to Seraphim's work. Now, if you remember, in the last show we talked about Seraphim's work and I had a lot of things to criticize about it. This is how it looked like. So if you compare this image to what you see here, I think that Seraphim listened to the feedback and improved a lot as a result. So let's see what he has to say. He says, hi, another study case, hope you like it, done in Max, Corona and Photoshop. Short but complete description actually, Seraphim. Again, as I said last time, if you do a study project, gladly share with us, especially in community like this, what exactly you wanted to concentrate on while studying or making this scene. Image-wise, it is great, a great presentation, to be honest, because you see we have varied angles, we have very good contrast to the images and also good image consistency, so the project already looks better than the last one. Congrats on that. Let's take a closer look. We have this simple, very simple bedroom with a central perspective, then we have a close-up on the nightstand, and as the last we have this very interesting angle from above the bed. Simple but fine design, everything seems to make sense. The color scheme and contrast, last time they were bad, because first of all you had the wrong lighting, you had the lighting coming from behind you, which obviously isn't a good thing, it makes everything look flat. But also when it came to the color scheme, everything was like messy and blurry and just nothing did stick out. Now take a look at this and you see it is way better in this regard. A few things regarding the design on my side. Maybe place a book or a glass of water or something on the right nightstand, just to give it a more lived-in look and as a balance to the left side. The door, I think, should be opening in the other direction. This is, purely technical, but as an architect, I tend to see something like this, because if you open the door right now, you have to walk towards the bed and then around it. If the door opens with the handle being on this side, you just come right in and you can just start going around the bed. And I also find the window to be rather unspectacular, because it's just like a very common normal window, and this is like a study project, so you can at least do it with the same dimensions as the door, so it starts at the floor and goes up, or maybe up until the ceiling. It will just look cooler and more modern. But other than that, the modeling is really fine. There isn't like a ton of it, but what is there is fine. The assets are really good, as we can see on this second shot. Materials are also better than last time. There is a clear color palette. I asked you to establish one for your projects, and you did, and it shows. The materials stick out nicely, act as they're supposed to. Personally, I don't like the parquet that much, because it has a kind of a vintage optic to it, which I don't think fits the rest of the space. Lighting wise, again, a huge improvement. Last time you had the lighting coming from behind the camera, resulting in a flat image. Now it's coming from the side, plus some artificial lighting highlights, and it is great. No areas are washed out or too dark, and the areas of interest are actually properly lit, which is as it should be. Also, the ceiling light I find to be a pretty cool idea. And at first I was a bit unsure about it. I was like, what's with this form? But if you take a look at it, like this, and then you take a look at this part of the bed, you'll see that you have visually built these two brackets on the opposite side of each other, which make for some kind of a smaller internal framing, which I think is a pretty cool move on your side. So yeah, the framing is really good on this shot and on the other ones as well. Really nice depth of field on this close-up here, and the third shot is also pretty interesting, very exciting, new perspective, why not? So in conclusion, this is one really good job and totally a step ahead, dear Seraphim. It seems like you really listened to the feedback from last time, took notes and actually implemented it, how, let's say, Tirchi or Georgi, of course, did, and it definitely paid off, in my opinion. So as a next step, I suggest going for a more complex and exciting scene, because this one is a bit too simplistic. It's just not the scene that will attract you many clients. Or maybe recreating an existing project, trying to match it as exactly as possible, because most projects on Art Daily or the Zine or so on are very exciting, or architecturally as well. So yeah, but I think this is really a step ahead, and congratulations on that. And with this, I will move on to the next project, which is a scene by Ashish. He says, hi, this shot is from one of our old walkthroughs done for a client based in India. The software used is 3ds Max, Corona and Photoshop. DM me for a query. Again, Ashish, you are relatively new to the group and the show, so I'll say it again. This is an educational community, not a marketplace. So, just post, share your whatever, Behance or Instagram link or a website maybe. But let's not turn it into a marketplace. Instead of something like DM me for any query, maybe share a bit more info about the project itself. Because yeah, I know the software combination, I know that this is a commercial one, but what we don't know, for example, with a scene like this especially, is what the project was about. Because to me, this looks like an animal enclosure of some kind, which would actually be a very awesome task to visualize. So it really makes one curious. So, instead of this self-promotion, try to form your text to be more about the project itself. And when it comes to the links you share, I think a website is always a good idea, or Behance. A lot of artists tend to share their Instagram. Personally, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Instagram, to be honest. I don't know how this platform turned out to be like the main platform for photos and images, because the images you see there always have to be this in this quadratic format, aspect ratio. They're also pretty small. You never see the detail. Let's say when we compare with Behance, on Behance you can really view large images in their full detail. It's just a pleasure to look at. So I personally always recommend Behance. But if you are a fan of Instagram, then share your Instagram. But generally, try to give more info on the project and be less self-promotional. Now let's take a look. Let's take a closer look at this image. I'll just open it for a second so you can, just enjoy it for a minute. Well, I'll take a sip of water and then we can talk about it a bit. I'll probably skip the design point because I think, this is not like the actual interior or exterior. It's like this nature scene. I think the design makes sense as such. Maybe this bird here, I'm not quite sure about it, because on the one hand, when it comes to composition or maybe to the atmosphere, it makes sense. It balances out the image. It shows that, animal and people and a person, animals and people are close to each other, which is awesome, an awesome message. But at the same time, it kind of looks like it's just T-posing and it waits for you to give it some proper form. And, it's not really that authentic or, natural looking. When it comes to the modeling and scattering, I would say the modeling looks pretty fine to me. I really like the detail on the railing here, the small screws and everything. It just makes for a more believable image. I also like the water surface with the waves. It looks pretty cool. The deck here is awesome. Regarding the assets, it's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. Some of the assets are quite decent. Let's say the swan here, or the pigeons. Others, not so much. Like the people, they're quite close and they're visible. It's visible that these are like 3D people. The trees, I don't like that much as well. But the main issue when it comes to modeling and scattering to me is the scattering, actually, because if we take a look at this distant shore of the lake, you will see that it doesn't really look very natural and authentic. Like the rocks that you have scattered are maybe too randomly scattered. They stick out kind of unnaturally. They're very bright and the grass around them is very dark. The trees are also very, very dense. It looks like you've scattered just as many trees as possible to hide that you don't have any other background or something. The grass here is also pretty dense. If you ask me, it looks more like fur or something. I'm not much of a fan of this. Apart from that, I would say the materials look very good. I love the deck material here. It really looks like a surface where people would go on with their dirty boots, where it rains on, and it's really, really authentic. I also like the water surface a lot. It's also very authentic, looks really good. The color palette is also pretty nice to me. The lighting and framing are also good, or at least decent, I would say. The lighting I find to be nice, but not emotional and impactful enough. Like, I get the idea with this maybe setting sun or something, it's a good thing, but it results in this very mellow lighting, which doesn't really enhance the mood of a scene like this. So if I were you, I would try to go for something more like this, like a bit of a stronger, more emotional lighting, which is just more impactful to the senses of the viewers. Framing wise, the framing is okay. Just use depth of field on branches like this because from up close they are not really that realistic. But with that being said, one really nice project, and I think with some better scattering and more impactful light to it, it can really be totally awesome. And here at this point, I have one general plea to all of you. It's not about you, Ashish. It's just general. Please don't share your old projects from your portfolio as with with me or the group or the show, or if you do so, please tell me about it and say, hey, dude, just keep this project in the show, because the goal of the show is not to provide you with free of charge portfolio review, but to actually talk about your current state of skills and your current state of artistry. So if you post a project from 3 or 4 years and I just give it a detailed review live, then it's a bit of a waste of time, because obviously in this time you have evolved as an artist, so the points that I'll be talking about won't be relevant anymore. So please, if you share old projects, you actually said it is an old one, to be fair, but if you share an old project, I think that in future I will just be skipping those, because we need to concentrate on here and now, how you can improve for future projects, and not talk about the past. Because if I share projects with you from like 10 years ago, you give me a full list of things to correct, which nowadays I won't be needing anymore. So it just generally doesn't make so much sense, right? And with this being said, we will skip this one. I talked with Christos and Abderrahman about it. It's just work in progress state. And, we have the show rules where we actually talk about projects that are actually finished or like almost finished, just short in front of being finished. And this is like an early stage, so we will skip this, but we're looking for, personally, I'm looking forward to the final one, because Abderrahman is a very good artist and his projects usually look quite cool. And then we move over to Manuel from Habitat 43. With this one, he is also labeled as a work in progress, but to me, this looks like one of those stages where the project is almost finished, so I would gladly talk about it. What you say is work in progress. What do you guys think? So I think that the project description of yours is a bit lacking, Manuel, to be honest, because, we don't know if this is a commercial or a personal project. We don't know the software combination it has been made in, and we don't know any further info about it. What's the whole thing about? So please spend a bit more time and write a few sentences about the project as a whole. It just makes it easier for me and for the others to evaluate it. Also, again, see it like this. You have spent hours or days or weeks on this project. You can then invest a minute or two to write a few sentences about it, right? But as for the image, before we enlarge it, as for the image itself, it actually looks really pleasant, has a good contrast and color to it, so the image presentation is pretty good, I would say. So let's take a closer look. The design of this, I would say one pretty nice situation, a sympathetic bungalow with a sweet little garden to it. Really nice green surroundings with the trees and the mountains in the back. What I don't like this much is that the inside of the house seems to be empty. And we already talked about it with the project by Lewis, the second one we talked about. This just makes for an image or a house that doesn't look lived in, that doesn't look used, which in my opinion always is something bad, because people cannot relate that much to a house that is just staying empty as to one which already has all the stuff. Additionally, it isn't even an empty house, because you already have some elements that show that people already live in it, like the hanging chair here. So gladly, instead of only the curtains, just put a few assets from the Cosmos library on the inside. I mean, you don't even have like full glazing or so on, so just put a few assets and call it a day, and it would be better. Modeling wise, the modeling looks pretty solid. to me. I don't have anything to complain about. Maybe the assets, because they're a bit of a mixed bag. Some are good, others like the tree or the hanging chair don't look very realistic. So try to exchange them for better ones. My advice, generally, when it comes to assets, this is one very important advice, is be very demanding when it comes to your assets, because their quality defines the quality of the final outcome of your work. You see, outside, the real world outside is realistic, right? It's photorealistic because it is like the real world, but it is like every asset out there or every object in the real world has detail to it and is realistic. So if you want to depict a realistic scene, but you have objects in it which just lack detail or don't look realistic, it obviously won't work. So yeah, sometimes, this is a show that I do together with Chaos Group, but we are also keeping it realistic. And I'll be honest about the Cosmos library, not every asset in it has like very high quality. It's just the truth. So if you search for a certain asset and you find it and you're not happy with the quality in the free Cosmos library, then gladly buy one, because you have to invest. Or of course, you can also model it on yourself. You're always free to do so. But as you know, this is the way it is. It usually takes way more time, and it's just a better investment if you simply buy the new asset. But yeah, you have to invest. Without investment, you won't have the outcome you're looking for. So again, be very demanding to your assets and try to always use the best assets possible. When it comes to the scattering, because we're talking about modeling, I would say the scattering looks mostly nice and convincing. I really like what you did here. It's probably this 1D scattering along a line. But if you ask me, you did it so nicely that it looks like every single one of those plants is a new one, is a different one, which is like the best case scenario when it comes to scattering, right? When it comes to the grass, however, I'm not so pleased with how it looks. And the reason for that is not the grass scattering itself, but the material of its underground or the ground beneath it. Because what you did here is what is being done in computer games. And this is using a grass texture on the ground in order to be able to use less scattered actual grass geometry on it. This is what it's done, especially on, in computer games where you have large exterior areas where you can free roam, in order to not have like billions of grasses being rendered there. They often use just quality grass textures, and once you get closer, they start filling it up with more and more scattered grass. But in real life, grass tends to grow on soil, and soil is brown or green. So if you want your grass to look authentic and realistic, then have the grass grow on brown, or what did I say, green? No, gray soil. It will immediately start looking better. But in return, you have to probably scatter a bit more clumps of grass than you currently have. Material-wise, I'm happy to see lots of UVW randomization on the planks, on the outside facade, also on these concrete stepstones here. It's always great to see that you have tried to do something to avoid texture repetition. The dark facade also looks really nice to me. The wooden planks here seem to need a bit more work when it comes to their mapping, and this tree bark here looks totally flat to me, so just use a different asset for the tree. Lighting wise, the lighting is decent, it does the job, it makes for a clear image with good contrast, but at the same time it is again not really impactful or atmospheric. It doesn't add to the mood. I think you can experiment with different lighting and make the mood and the whole illumination of the scene more pronounced through it. Framing wise, nothing to add, it's just okay as it is. So in conclusion, I'd say this is one really good job with the most elements of it being really fine. Just add life on the inside gladly, maybe also some light as well. Do some fine tuning on some of the materials and the lighting, gladly use references for that, especially when it comes to the lighting, and you have yourself one really good portfolio project. I see Abderrahman joined us. Hello, man. We'll skip Subhan's project because I gave him a written review and I want him to concentrate more on one project and work it until it's really detailed, until it's really realistic, and then share it and stop just sharing it for the numbers. So we'll move on to Okrif. I think this is your first project, Okrif. He's a rustic attic design featuring a random nature-inspired feel with a warm touch to combat the winter cold on the outside. I hope you like it. It's done in SketchUp and V-Ray. Now, regarding your presentation, you seem to have shared the post from your wall, which is in Arabic and French, which both I cannot read. I tried translating it with a built-in translator here in Facebook, but it was absolutely pure gibberish what came out. I still couldn't understand a word, even though I know the words that I read there. So please maybe try to write a description for the group. Like if you share here, just give a specific group description. And again, the more information this description contains, the better. And then please consider that the original, like the official group language is English. As for the image presentation, I would say the images have a generally consistent look to them, but they also look kind of messy. I'll be honest with you. It's like if you squint your eyes, it's difficult to say what you see on those images. And if we go back, let's say on this project, like Manuel's project, and squint our eyes, or let's say here Seraphim project because it has more shots to it, and again squint our eyes, we are still able to figure out what these images are about. But in your case, I have to be honest, it really becomes very quickly very messy. Now let's take a closer look at those images. So it is obviously one really interesting architectural situation you've had to deal with here, which is of course both nice but on the other hand difficult. There are some really exciting interior design solutions to it as well. Let's say the kitchen and this kitchen block with the fridge. I think it's something quite exciting. I cannot recall seeing something like this already, even though I've studied architecture for like almost 7 years. And then we have this like ceiling apartment under a pitched roof, which is always something difficult to deal with, both when it comes to visualizing, but also to just interior design. Personally, Abderrahman says he likes the idea of your design. I do too, honestly, but I'm not sure if all of this really works, because let's take a look at this area, for example. I mean, you have managed to use it in a wise way, I gotta admit this. But at the same time, it really looks kind of narrow, also very low, like it's for really small people. I cannot imagine this dude going to work there every day. So it's a tricky situation. Also, when it comes to the design, I wouldn't say that it is very consistent, to be honest, because you have elements from very different types of architecture. So let's say you have the wooden beams here and something like this antler chandelier, which clearly is coming from, this mountain cabin design. At the same time, if we go further, you see there is like lots of chrome and glass, which is like more modernistic design. Then again, there is like exposed brickwork, which is more of this industrial interior design. So I think this is a mix that I personally consider to be too much Sure, it's something like this is a matter of perspective and personal taste, but to me, it's like too much. Abderrahman says maybe try to manage the primary and secondary details like try the 60-30-10 rule. So do some reading on this. This is a really good tip from Abderrahman here. When it comes to the modeling, again, this is one complex situation, but looking at your modeling, you actually have spent a lot of effort trying to depict it as good as possible, or build it, model it as good as possible. And in SketchUp, exactly this isn't the best software that comes to mind when I have a complex situation like this, I gotta admit, but you did a great job in this regard. Still, I would say the modeling needs to be a bit cleaner and have more detail to it. You have very sharp edges currently. So if it was Max, I would have said use chamfering, but you cannot do so. I think there is a chamfer plugin for SketchUp, but in your case, just maybe use a round edges material. Also, if you do something like this, these planks here, this is not the way you do it. You just make this striped wall geometry, then you put like plank material to it, and then you hope that the grouts just fit in, because they obviously don't, and it just doesn't look good. Instead, do it with a floor generator, I would say. Material-wise, the materials aren't really great. The examples, I will give you a few examples. Let me just go, let's say, to this image. You see the wooden beams here, for example. So you see this doesn't look like a wooden beam. It looks like plastic or something, because first of all, it is way too reflective, way too glossy. It doesn't have any bump or roughness to it, so obviously it must be very different than it is currently depicted. The wall structure, I don't like either. It's like very rough on the one side, but also not really realistic at the same time. Also, there are way too many materials. So I just took this scene here and I'll show you something. Let's count together the number of vastly different wood materials we have in just one shot. So we have number one here on this wall or ceiling, whatever. So this is this reddish wood. Then we have the second one on the beams, which is this brown vintage beam wood. Then we have the third one, and these are all main materials, right? On the opposite wall, which is this desaturated wood plank material. Then we have the parquet wood, which is the fourth one. Then you have, I've given them specifically smaller numbers so that we can differentiate between main materials, main wood materials and asset wood materials. But still, this is the fifth wooden material. I don't know how much 5 is, so this is 5. This is the fifth wooden material. This is this dark brown, more desaturated wood, which is more matte at the same time. Then we have the sixth wooden material on the table, and then if you take a look at this area, we have like 7 or 8 already. So this is just one shot, and we have so many different looking wooden materials, and this is not good. This makes for a scene that is not harmonious, where the design doesn't look coherent, and I think this is an issue that you should definitely address. Try to reduce, try to work with just 1 or 2 wood materials, try to have a very clear color concept, and your images will immediately turn out better than they currently are. The next thing, which is an issue to me, is the lighting. You see this here. We have very heavy overexposure. It's so heavy that it is just difficult to say what kind of material is underneath it. It's just a yellowish, whitish, yellowish area. This is a no-go the way it is. There are a few ways to counter this. First, you can use highlight compression in the video frame buffer in your render engine. Second, you can reduce the strength of your light source. If it's an HDRI, then reduce the output of it. If it is a sun, then a multiplier. And third solution, maybe just go for a different global illumination solution, maybe an overcast HDRI. I think it would be the better solution in this case, and it will give you a more balanced look when it comes to the lighting. And it will also, of course, fix the issue with the overexposure. Effects-wise, you seem to use a lot of ambient occlusion, as we see it on this column, which takes away a lot of the realism of this scene. Reduce its usage as much as possible, if not totally, and only use it in areas where you need to just get a bit more detail. But if you fix your overall lighting, let's say with an overcast one, you won't need this very strong and fake looking ambient occlusion. And when it comes to the framing, I would say apart from the very first shot, this is this one, which actually has a nice framing to it. It maybe just needs some depth of field. I would say that the framing is kind of really poor. Sorry to be so direct, but this is just the way I see it and feel it. It looks like shots that are randomly taken with a smartphone by somebody who's absolutely not a professional. There is no depth of field to them. There is no really clear focus to them. No real compositional idea. What they remind me of are the images that realtors and brokers in Stuttgart, the city we used to live in for 12 years, used to take. Because Stuttgart is a city where a lot of people want to live in because there is a lot of good paid work there. But so the demand for real estate, for apartments, for people to live in is very high, but there aren't as many flats that are free for people to move in. So the realtors there don't really have to put an effort. Once they put their hands on an apartment, they would just go in, take a few crappy photos, write some shitty description, like 2 sentences, and that's it, because they know that people will take the apartment, anyway. And obviously, this is not really a good association, right? So in my conclusion, I would recommend you, because you already have this solid base for a very good portfolio project, in my opinion, because this is one interesting situation, as Abderrahman says. But in its current state, it simply isn't there where it should be. So I suggest working with references of such spaces, doing some reading on the rules of composition and lighting, and reducing your materials used, going for a clear color palette, clear color scheme, and I'm sure you can make a lot more out of this very solid base you already have. Let me check the comments. I see my man Alan is there. Hello, man. Abderrahman says, really important. We are very tempted to add so many details, but like Theo says, you should be able to understand what you're seeing if you're squinting your eyes. Yeah, it is just very undefined the way it is now. So you really have to do some reading on composition, on lighting. Take a look. There are references for situations like this. This is not like the very first apartment which is situated under a pitched roof. Take a look at what professional photographers do in such situations and try to follow in their lead, in their footsteps, so that you can make the best out of this, because there is a lot of potential here as well. As a next, we have something very interesting. Jonathan with a still image from an animation project he's working on. Feedback is welcome. It's done in Max V-Ray Phoenix and After Effects. As Brian put it out, I think the reference is obvious in this case. It looks like a scene from Cyberpunk 2077. With this dude being one of the, if I'm not mistaken, Maelstrom gang members. Personally, I enjoy a cyberpunk setting, not only the one of the game, but also generally a cyberpunk setting a lot. I find it very interesting. So this one looks really promising. Also, he shared, a simulation or an animation preview in the comments. So it looks really promising. I'm really looking forward to the final result of this animation of yours, Jonathan. As you're asking for feedback, I think the atmosphere really checks out with the cyberpunk setting. You have set up really good lighting with lots of neon ads, like they're essential for a cyberpunk setting. Also, this hazy light pollution we have in the background, this also belongs to it. One smart thing that you have used, and generally a smart thing to think about, so a bit food for thought here. You see, let's say if the street and the walkway here weren't wet, then they will be pretty diffuse and they wouldn't be reflecting anything. So we will have all the lights up here in the upper 2/3 of the image, and the bottom area here would just be kind of dead looking. Because we don't want to see that, because this cyberpunk atmosphere lives from these lights. What Jonathan did here was make the street and the walkway here wet. So in this case, he also gets some of these lights that he has up here in the reflections down here. So now the whole scene contains some neon lights, which is a very nice way of getting good, even interesting lighting. Also, a great feeling of depth you have achieved here, because it looks like the city is just a huge one and it continues to infinity with tons of other buildings in the background. Good environmental, I don't know if it is environmental fog or whatever you have used, but it is good volumetric effect to the whole scene. The modeling and the textures also seem nice. The movement of this dude walking towards the camera also looks pretty decent. The Phoenix, I guess, animation of fire and smoke is quite cool. I'm really looking forward to the final result. Maybe currently the street and the walkway here are kind of too clean. They will surely profit from some dirt, some rubbish, some debris. Also, some of the assets on the walkway here look a bit random, because this looks like a speaker, and I wouldn't know why this speaker would be just lying there as it does now. But yeah, again, I'm very looking forward to this final animation when it's done. And yeah, the fog is very atmospheric. Yeah, it shows, but it's really cool. I really like this subtle lighting in the background. It is you have aced the atmosphere pretty much. So great work in this regard. By the way, have you played the game? I would say yes, judging by this image, but yeah, it's just an assumption. And if you played it, did you enjoy it? And to the rest of you in the comments, have you played Cyberpunk? Did you enjoy it? Do you remember the fiasco around the release of this game? Because it was very unfinished as it came out. I have pre-ordered it, but with a big deal. So I wasn't too sad about it or too upset, because I actually still enjoyed the story. But the way this game released was still an absolute no-go, and it was a letdown from CD Projekt Red. And I think that in the meantime, they have fixed it. There were 2 huge patches. Also, there is some additional content in the meantime, and I guess it's very much playable without all the bugs and so on. And it's a great game. You have Keanu Reeves starring in it, and in this new addition to the game, I think it's also Idris Elba playing along. So yeah, it's cool for somebody who enjoys a cyberpunk setting. There aren't so many games out there, so the game is something I would recommend. And generally, folks, do you play games? I know for one of us, I don't know if he's still around because of the 2 drops we had in the beginning, but Roy Gaia is a huge gamer. He draws a lot of his inspiration from gaming, and I think this is awesome, to be honest, because I do as well. And we talked about it with him on this topic, and he says when he plays a game, he just doesn't only just play the game for the gameplay, he also walks around and takes a look at what the artists have done there, because the people who make games are actually artists as well. So when they make a game, they have some solutions, or they have ways of presenting such situations, something like nature or interior situations and so on. And it's actually a lot of knowledge and ideas you can get from games just by walking around and looking at what other artists have done. So yeah, if you are into them, gladly share it. Let's talk a bit about gaming. Why not? Because again, it's a hobby of mine. I personally really enjoy it. The current state of gaming is not really good. We had better times when it comes to gaming, but still there are very good games out there, and especially when it comes to the graphic part of games, there is a lot to get inspired by. Also, if you're learning Unreal and so on, a lot of the new games nowadays are done in Unreal 5. They look very realistic, so you can surely get some inspiration from them. I see Jonathan has played Cyberpunk, has enjoyed it. Abderrahman says games are great, nice music, nice graphic, nice stories. Unfortunately, somehow I don't enjoy them. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a matter. It's you like them or you don't. You don't have to. But what I don't enjoy as much is people who say, "Yeah, I used to play them, but now I'm grown up and games are just for kids." This isn't true, especially games that are, you have to be 18 or above to play them. Obviously, they're not just for kids. Abderrahman says also some game designers are some of the most motivated artists. This is true, but they are also some of the most crunching artists, so I don't know if we want to be like them, to be honest. But yeah, let's move on to Abdi from AS Art, 3D and motion graphics, with his delightful touch animation, which is another sweet show music promo video made with Tyflow. I again won't be playing the music because Facebook is very sensible with it. But you remember last show we started with an animation by Abdi, this pendulum, which was moving in a very authentic way. And this time we have these elastic bows interacting with each other in this confined space. I really enjoyed the music as well. Both animations or visuals and music go wonderfully together. I cannot now, or I won't do it, but I have played it a few times. I had it actually on a loop, and I really enjoyed the music of this artist and this video. And to you, Abdi, of course, congrats on achieving a very, very good loop and also this awesome simulation. It's just a pleasure to look at. And we have another great artist when it comes to VFX, Matt Ludwig, who's like, love your grinding, bro. I wish I have still this much energy to push so many personal projects. So yeah, obviously your work is really inspiring to me as well, even though I'm absolutely no into it, but I gladly learn from you. And what you do I find to be very inspirational and very motivational for this group, so please don't stop with it. And then we move on to Abderrahman, who has been very active in the comments. Now, he says, hello everyone, this is an older project of mine that I did 2 years ago, or possibly more, based on a Pinterest image to practice making custom furniture and, importantly, lighting and materials. It's made using Blender, Max, and Corona. Abderrahman, as you're in the comments, what furniture pieces did you make customly? Which did you model yourself? And also, what parts did you do in Blender and which ones in Max? This project does so much right, so I will probably make one of those quick reviews and just start talking about, because, the general presentation is really nice. We had a really nice description of the origins of this project, which makes it really easier to understand why you did it. We have an obviously pleasant design, even if in this small preview here, it's visible the decent modeling and the assets, the nice materials, lighting, tone mapping, everything is already visible in the small preview. And if we got to the close-up and start talking about it, it's one obviously very awesome shot with great focus through this very sweet depth of field and camera placement that you have. It is a very fine lighting which makes these three objects in focus here really stick out to their background. Beautiful colors, good contrast, wonderful tone mapping, really warm and kind of nostalgic. I really like it. I'm not sure about the noise in this case, because if I take a look at the second one, I would say you just have too much noise in those images, which is not a good thing. But on a shot like this, the noise could have also been film grain that you have purposefully put in the post-production just for the sake of enhancing the emotionality here. So in this case, I think that the noise is something we can actually cope with without a big issue. When it comes to the main scene, however, it's just too much noise. You just have to render it longer and denoise more. You say the modeling was done in Blender and 3D Max was for rendering. For the sofa, I started with a similar-ish model, but changed everything and kept the pillows. Okay, so the sofa is kind of modeled by you, which is a great work then, because the sofa really looks good. The materials also generally look good, nice color scheme. Tone mapping, again, really beautiful. The lighting is pleasant. It's borderline overexposed, but it's not overexposed. Because, yeah, the scene is really on the verge of being too bright, but I don't think that, maybe apart from here, which is on the outside, and that is kind of okay, that there is no like pure white values in this, at least on the inside of this apartment. The framing on the left is pretty narrow, in my opinion. Just give it a bit more space in situations like this so that it doesn't look cramped. It makes a difference, believe me. So just take a look at how it is now and just take a look at what a difference a bit of space towards the edge makes. It just makes for a more spacious overall impression of this space. You say use Blender sculpting brushes for that as well. Oh, wait a second. The kitchen and some props you've done, and you have used Blender sculpting brushes for that as well. Well, worked out nicely. And I talked already about the noise. So in conclusion, this is just good stuff, the Abderrahman. This really looks cool. Again, in future, I will probably skip projects that are older because in the meantime, you have just evolved. So if it's not something that you say really definitely needs my feedback or my review, in future, I'll try to concentrate more on your current projects and your current state of skills rather than talk about old works. But this one is great, and yeah, it really does make a huge difference. Sometimes it's small stuff like this that makes a huge difference. Without it, it's kind of cramped and confined, and with it, it suddenly is like greatly proportioned. Not because I did it, just how it is. Let's continue with Seper. He says, hello guys, the point of this project is how to show the best combination between furniture design with a parquet handmade in Italy with the wabi-sabi style. It's done in rhinoceros and V-Ray. And this is one pretty cool description, if you ask me, allowing to understand the software combination used, that it is a commercial one, and also the general background of this project. When it comes to the image presentation, it's consistent. In this case, not really varied, but you are presenting two different angles, the way I understand it, as two different options in order to show, the best way to show, like in an optimal way, the combination between the furniture and the floor and the general style. So it's like two alternatives. So obviously it's not about varying the images and as it is in a usual project. So let's take a closer look we have the first shot where we can take a look at this whole dining table situation with the lamps hanging above it, the chairs, the table, and the decorations. And on the second one, it's a bit of a vertical section on the whole thing. So simple but fine design, really checks out with the description that you gave us. Very pleasant and welcoming and suiting color scheme as well. The modeling, I would say, is also generally good, in my opinion. The sets are pretty fine, but I will also urge you to please be more precise when it comes to your modeling, because you see here these wooden shelves are actually, I think, supposed to fit in this niche in the wall, and suddenly they look misplaced, obviously. Also, I think they should be higher, so not this rest gap, so that you just avoid this gap, which remains just as a rest space. It doesn't look nice. This ceiling grout, if I were you, I would move a bit to the side. So, you know, there is some connection between the different elements of the scene. Also, you see the curtain here to the side. It's holding on to nothing. So you obviously need a bit more detail there. Just think about stuff like this. You're working in Rhino. Again, in Rhino 1 can be really precise. So please do so. Material-wise, I already said the materials leave a very solid general impression. The subtle wall structure is really nice. I really enjoy it. The other materials also look pretty good. They fit together well in terms of color as well. There is some repetition on the parquet floor, as you see, but as you don't have like a huge space of it, I think it's okay. This plant in the corner you have on the landscape formatted shot seems kind of weird, though. It's the coloring of its leaves is kind of natural. It's also too dark. And if I were you, I would also change the color of this spot from something like anthracite to something beige, so that this plant in general doesn't stick out that much, because it's not an important or significant scene element. When it comes to the lighting, I think that the lighting does a very decent job of lighting up the scene, and then you have some warm highlights here and there that just add to it. I like this a lot. Framing wise, let's start with this landscape ratio shot. I don't find it very attractive because the way it is currently cropped, it is just about this table situation. It's like the table, the chairs, and what's on the table. So it's not about everything or the relation, let's say, between the floor, the wabi-sabi style, the different materials. It's about a table. The second one, the portrait mode shot, however, is way better because, first of all, it's way more interesting. It's more dynamic because of this curtain that's blown by the wind. It also shows, this time, it's like a vertical slice. It shows the floor, it shows parts of the table, so you know it's not about the table, but just the table being a part of something, because we see everything we need to see from the table. We see the chairs, we see the ottoman, we see the full lamp, we see the whole back wall. So this is absolutely my clear recommendation for which shot to choose when you try to establish a visual relation between the single elements of your scene. The only thing I don't like as much is that you have cut. This is very similar to what we talked about on Abderrahman's project, with cutting the edge just so close to an important scene element. Give it a bit of space to breathe. So instead of having something like this, just, you have anyway a lot of empty floor space. Just move the camera a bit up until you have a bit less floor space. Nothing happens there anyway, and you have a bit more space here. It makes for a more balanced, more clean and laid back image as in general. But in conclusion, another good job of yours. Last time we had a project that was pretty good. This is another one. Every time you put real or a lot of effort and love into your work, it shows, and the results are very solid. Just try to work more on your precision, on your fine-tuning, on the small details for an even better final outcome. this is actually the last project I had for today. I have prepared, I prepared the projects on Monday evening, and this was the last thing that was posted yesterday. In the meantime, we have also Tilina's project. About his works. Yeah, they are just conceptual proposals. So I already talked about them in general, and if something doesn't drastically change about them, I don't plan to talk about them like I talk about the other projects, but we can maybe just enjoy going through this one together, because again, he always has this same style. It's just a different building every time. So let's take a look at this droplet one and enjoy its architecture. Personally, I would be very happy if Tilina's concepts would see the light of day actually and get built at some point. I think it would be awesome to have stuff like this in resorts or like some really nature-bound hotels, bungalows. I think this is just awesome stuff, but again, I have already given feedback to a very similar image to this one or project to this one, so I'll just repeat myself. So this is why I'd rather skip it. As the next we have Isaac with this project that I have to prepare on before talking about, so I will just leave it for the next time. What we have now is what I announced in the beginning on our first try before the sound screwed, is that we now have the recording of the last Chaos Campus live show with Ian Spriggs. It was an amazing show. It took an hour. Nikos uploaded the recording now, so if you have missed it, really make sure to take a look at it. I guarantee that it will inspire you, because his work is not only photorealistic, it is lively, it has emotion to it, and this is something we all can profit from seeing and getting inspired by. Then we have this Chaos Vantage video shared by Lily. It's Lily from 4 Pixels Academy. It's about Chaos Scatter in Chaos Vantage. It's like a 4-minute video, so gladly take a look at it. There is useful stuff to see about Chaos Scatter in general, and also how it could be combined with Chaos Vantage and where the limitations are, because there currently are some limitations if you use the scatterer with Vantage. So maybe just take a look at it. And then maybe as a final thing, we have this pretty cool, very, very short tutorial. It's like a 30-second tutorial by Konstantinos on how to make stitches. It is really simple. I personally had never made stitches before this. I took a look at this tutorial, understood everything within those 30 seconds, and now I know how to make stitches, which I think is really awesome. I would give everything if any tutorial out there would be 30 seconds and after it I will know how to do a certain thing. Obviously this is not always possible, but something that's more simple but still tricky like this, it works. So big thanks to Konstantinos from Mesh Mastery about this really, really sweet tutorial. And then we have as a new one this project by Hosem, which we will be talking about on the next show. And I think with all of this being said, I'd say we're done for today. In some, it wasn't maybe longer than 1.5 hours, or was it? Or maybe 2 hours. But in the meantime, we actually had some technical issues to work around. So I'm really sorry for that. Next time before the show, I will restart my router and also my whole system. We didn't have issues with it, on the previous shows. Now on the 8th show, it suddenly happened. I have no idea why. I will do some reading on this topic to know how it happens and how I can prevent it in future. But on the other hand, this is a live show. Stuff like this happens. I thank you for your patience and understanding, for waiting for me to, start it a second and even a third time after a small pause. And I'm happy that in the end you were able to actually hear me without an issue, and we were able to just finish our show as usual. Maybe I will download all the videos and fuse them to a new one, or I will just, leave it as it is, so that you can just watch the 3 ones. The second one is bad anyway because it didn't help. I will delete this. So we'll have just the first one and then this third try that we are currently at. And yeah, thanks a lot for your time, for your attention. And I really hope to see you next time on October 31st on Halloween. Then I will probably suggest these 2 projects I was talking about to recreate. It would be interesting to know how much time you can spend in a month in order to recreate a project like this. Like, is it an hour a week or like 5 hours a week? Because as I already told you, I want to suggest 2 projects from Art Daily, for example, just a simple scene and one which is more elaborate, just for you as a suggestion to, if you're looking for one to recreate, with the goal of this being that if you recreate it together, like a few people working on one scene and a few people trying to recreate the other one, you can also share informations between each other, maybe in the chaos, in the keeping it realistic messenger group. And you can just, if somebody manages to do something or doesn't manage to do something, they can reach out to the others that are also making this project as well, and just ask them how they did this or that, so that you can profit from each other, push each other up, and just become better artists. Because this is the goal of the whole thing here, is to establish a community which makes us stronger, and as a result, we all become better artists. So yeah, maybe if you're in, I'll maybe make a survey about this, but if you're in, I plan to make my suggestion for these 2 projects to recreate on the next show, and then you have the whole November to do so, and in the beginning of December we can take a look at the final outcome. So gladly let me know how much time do you think you'll be having to do so, because if you have 1 hour a week, it's like 4 or 5 hours for the month, which obviously isn't enough for the deadline of delivering said projects. So yeah, with all of this being said, thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for being active in the comments. I always really dig our talks, and I hope to see you next week. Bye, be safe, and have a good rest of the week. Ciao.